Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. We're on page 42. This is the last page of chapter 3, Full of Tears. Or, I'm sorry, The Caucus Race and a Long Tail. Well, we left off, Alice was talking about her cat, Diana, who happens to eat birds. As she forgets who she's talking to, which are a bunch of birds and other things. And then one old magpie, which is a new character, began wrapping herself up carefully and remarking that I really must be getting home. The night air doesn't suit my throat. So the magpie is uncomfortable with Alice is talking about Diana. So I'm going to just go home. It's cold. I might have a sore throat. A canary, which is a new character, calls out in a trembling voice to its children, "Come away, my dears, it's high time you were all in bed." So now we know there's a canary, and the canary has some children. And on various pretexts, they all moved off, and Alice was soon left alone. Remember, being alone, loneliness is part of the theme of Alice in Wonderland. This is very important. So what's a pretext? A pretext is a reason, I defined it for you over here, in justifying a course of action. It's really an excuse. It's a pretext. Well, I'm not feeling good, so I can't make the party. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. You make an excuse. It's a pretext. It's not the real reason. It's just a pretext. And these birds and other creatures were making excuses because they just don't want to be listening to Alice talk about her cat who might eat them. So after they leave and she's alone, she says, "I wish I hadn't mentioned Diana." Of course she does. That's called regret. Regret. And she said to herself in a melancholy tone. There's another good word, melancholy. Sad. Nobody seems to like her. Who's her? Diana. Down here. Remember, she's down the rabbit hole. And I'm sure she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my dear Diana, I wonder if I shall ever see you anymore. And here poor Alice began to cry again, for she felt very lonely and low-spirited. Remember, this is a Wonderland tale. It's a happy tale. It's a sad tale. It's a confusing tale. It's kind of like life, isn't it? In a little while, Alice, again heard a splash, some panting and footsteps in the distance, a little pattering, and she looked up eagerly, hoping it was the mouse that has changed his mind to come back and finish the story. She hears some footsteps. We're going to stop there. That's chapter 3. Before we go, however, I put up some little boxes for a discussion here because I wanted to go back. I remember I gave you some homework. I asked you what a cur is, and then I asked you to look up fury. If you looked up fury, it's a very interesting word. There's some movies called Fury now, but we're not talking about now. We're talking about, before, past, present, future, right? Fury comes from a famous line of Shakespeare. Remember, Shakespeare was one of the things that Alice referred to, pointing to his head in earlier dialogue and narration. I quoted Macbeth Act 5, Scene 5. Why don't you read that? First of all, a cur is a dog. A cur. You cur. If you say you cur, you're calling someone a dog, you dog. So the next time you want to call somebody a dog, just call them a cur and they probably will look at you with vacant eyes. Shakespeare says, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's really a depressing statement. It's really let's think about this. Shakespeare, Macbeth, you got to read the play sometime too. It's an excellent play. You'll find that Shakespeare is often quoted in books. If you looked up fury, chances are you stumbled on sound in the fury. I should have typed that out. Sound in the fury. Let me type that out here. Sound, the sound in the fury. Fury, sorry, fury, fury. That was a book written by famous William Faulkner, American writer. Again, a good book. But when you think about the word fury and the mouse's tail, Fury was talking to the mouse. Remember that? So if you go back and you look at those 2 pages that we analyzed with the mouse's tail, you'll find that Fury in the mouse's tail, he calls him a cur, is actually the name of a dog. In the mouse's tail, Fury is a dog. So in the mouse's tail, if you remember the tale, they decide they're going to go into law. Look at the bottom box here. If you were to summarize the mouse's tail in a very, very simple sentence, remember we talked about simple sentences, compound sentences. We'll get more and more into that grammar. But if I were to ask you to summarize the mouse's tail, you can summarize it this way. A dog ate a mouse. That's really what happens in the mouse's tail. Because remember, it ends in death. So it's a sad story. But look at how the language is used in this tale, in the mouse's tail. They both go into the law. They're lawyers, perhaps, and Fury will prosecute the mouse, and the mouse is going to be defense. And his defense is that there is no judge and jury, so how can we have a trial? But Fury says he'll be the judge and jury, and he condemns the mouse to death. And he's going to execute them since he's going to eat the mouse, theoretically. Or will he? Go to this box over here in the middle. Was the story really finished? Because they want the mouse to come back to finish the story, but then Alice says something about Diana and they all leave. And she wished she had met, and then she's hoping at the end of chapter 3 that the mouse had decided to come back to finish his story. Was his story finished? The mouse was condemned to death. Do you think there is more to the story? How would you end the story? I mean, you can end it any way you want. You can think about it any way you want. You could say that the mouse resisted, that he wasn't prosecuted. He left. He ran through the window. He escaped, into the countryside to live happily ever after. You can end stories any way you want using your imagination. But in this case, we're forced to look at what the third-person narrator tells us was the mouse's story. Remember story in a story? So as we think about the mouse's story, right, I want you to think about Shakespeare's quote. Think about this. Let's go back to Shakespeare's quote. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. So Shakespeare is telling us life is kind of like a shadow. We strut around, we fret around, and that's it. That's it. And then the next sentence, it's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Well, that's one point of view. And it's the mouse's sad tale, because the mouse has ended up, he's death. It's death, right? That's what this is, death. But that's not what this story is about. That's not what Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is about. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is about wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R, the wonderment of life, the wondering of life. Now, of course, Alice is crying a lot. She's lonely a lot. She's sad a lot. And when she gets talking to creatures, there's a lot of misunderstanding going on. There's a lot of misunderstanding going on. Alice is changing all the time. But isn't that what life is all about? Trying to figure it out? You tell me. I want you to tell me. And before you go, I drew a list up on the left here of all the creatures that have been involved in this. We got a duck, we got a dodo, we got a Lowry, eaglet, mouse, Ellis, lot of things going on, kind of like life, right? Lot of things like life. So in any case, you decide, because we're going to go on to chapter 4. The rabbit sends in a little bill, whatever that means. And we're going to do that the next time. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. My email is jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. You can also send it to info@readingwithjimmy.com. But in any case, thanks so much for listening. And remember, life is not really just a walking shadow because you're in that shadow. Thanks for listening. Bye.